This was Kyle Larson's car after a crash at Talladega this past spring. And this was a test car that was crashed in a simulation here just in this last week or so. NASCAR made updates and safety changes to the next-gen car following a scary crash at Talladega in April. Now, both drivers, Kyle Larson and Larson-Preece, were okay, no injuries sustained, but it still was a freaky accident. Preece T-boned Kyle Larson at Talladega, going, I don't know how fast, but very, very fast. Hit Larson's right side door so hard to the point that Larson's door basically caved in. Those bars, as a part of the roll cage, basically came into the cockpit, which they are not supposed to do. NASCAR immediately said that they were going to take the 5 back to the Research and Development Center. And usually when they take a car to the Research and Development Center, it's looking at the car, just every single piece to make sure nothing's illegal. There's no illegal modifications like a lot of the penalties we've seen with the next-gen car. But they specified that this was different because of the damage sustained in the crash, because of how dangerous the crash was. They were taking the 5 car back to their Research and Development Center for the specific reason of seeing what went wrong in this car and how can they fix it or improve the potential safety. Safety is something that NASCAR has been taking head on since 2001. Of course, that was the last fatality in NASCAR with legend Dale Earnhardt, but it has been a top priority of NASCAR's and any car they have made since 2001, whether it's mandating Hans devices for the drivers, whether it's adding safer barriers to all the tracks, or it is making specific safety changes to the actual car itself. NASCAR has made sure that safety is an absolute priority when it comes to any of their cars, any series, because the fact of the matter is you don't want to see anyone get hurt, and of course you don't want to see anyone die on a racetrack. With the next-gen car, there has been some question of safety. We've seen some injuries last year with Kurt Busch and Alex Bowman getting concussions, and Cody Ware, I think, broke his foot or something. I think that was more of a freak accident, but it did still happen. So NASCAR with the concussions, because the head injuries looked like they were becoming more common, NASCAR opted to soften the back end of the car to where when it would hit the wall, it wouldn't be so stiff, and that when the hit happens, the driver would not be taking the majority of that hit. It would be the car absorbing the impact more by crushing. Well, with this crash specifically, they ran some simulations, ran some tests. They did some things on their computers to basically figure out what went wrong. They added some extra steel, some extra plates into the side of the car, and they also made the front of the car give a little bit more so the impact would not be as severe on the car, and also so that it would be less violent, I guess. I mean, it's still going to be violent regardless if you're going 150 miles an hour and T-bone someone. But here are some of the clips from the actual crash test.
There's always a balance in all of that. So after we got a year of data under our belt, we can really go back with wheel force data, tire test data, and our teams are a huge resource giving us data that they get in all of their K&C testing and pull-down rigs to really understand what are the true loads going through the front clip. And after we got that data after a year of racing, we were able to go back and make our simulations better, able to understand that we were conservative in the loads that we were asking.
Car as it hits the crumple zone.
Yeah, you can see our current car. It hits the barrier and things begin to crush. We use up our aluminum structure, but you can see we don't use up as much of the front clip.
The car on the right side here, it definitely, you even see the motor move back, not too far, but you're seeing more displacement out of this.
Yeah, we wanted more displacement, but there's a balance. We also don't want to intrude into the driver's foot space or into their footwell.
So as you can see, yeah, they did a lot of crash tests with this. They said that they figured out the exact angle, the exact speed, and the exact point of impact that happened in their crash tests, in their simulations, their research data, whatever it was. So they fully investigated this thing, got all the possible details that they could, and they made changes based on it. Here are some of the changes. Now, but actually, before we get to the changes, I think it's already the pinned comment. So if you've gone to the comments at this point, you've seen it. But there's like a 6-minute video that NASCAR put on their YouTube channel that basically explains all the changes. It shows a video of every single detail. Obviously, I cannot simply just put every single bit of that in my video, but yes, they have explained everything. Todd Gordon and then someone from NASCAR as well talk about it, show all the different parts and pieces that changed, and so you can look at it there. Be sure to go look at that if you want more of the details. It really is truly fascinating. I'm not like a car expert in any way, shape, or form. I don't understand everything they say, but just looking at the actual differences, them showing what's going on, explaining just the small things, it really is truly fascinating. I appreciate NASCAR being transparent and showing these changes, every single detail, and explaining why it's happening. Back to the actual thing I said I was going to read. Alongside the right side door bars and extending towards the rear clip, teams will now be mandated to run a steel plate in addition to the chassis adjustments made for the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The right side door bar gussets and the removal of the front clip V-brace are changes that remain in addition to the removal of other front clip components to create a softer and larger crush zone for frontal impacts. Also included in the updates are front bumper strut softening, modifications to existing parts, the requirement of an empty front ballast box, and a modified cross brace. NASCAR will incur the cost of all these updates. We've taken a lot of the steel structural members and removed material from key elements to make this structure less stiff, said Dr. John Padalak, I probably pronounced that wrong, Vice President of Safety Engineering at NASCAR. We have slots on both sides. We have deleted some cross members between the upright mounts, and we've treated some of the areas down low that are some of the first to contact the wall on the front clip. We've also added slots to this ballast container as well as some holes, and it's all an effort to increase the amount of displacement we're getting out of the car and to reduce the accelerations that the driver is experiencing. While frontal crash improvement work was already underway, the crash between Kyle Larson and Larson-Preece in April at Talladega Superspeedway set a baseline for testing that has produced beneficial results. Larson and Preece also made visits to the NASCAR R&D Center to assist with the investigation. The right side door bars of the center section is getting a steel plate welded to it, and really what it does is strengthening the right side door bars against intrusion for crashes like we saw at Talladega with the 5 and 41, Padalak said. Patalik. I still don't know how to pronounce that. I apologize again. We reconstructed that crash at a test facility and we're pleased with the performance where we're hanging on to everything. We still do have bent door bars, but minimal intrusion and much better performance. Both cars in the crash test were constructed with the new safety updates. So yeah, they made a lot of changes to the car, the next-gen car, for this reason. The word intrusion was used a lot in there because, I mean, literally, let's say this box that you're seeing me on is the cockpit of the car. I'm the driver over here. And you know what? My laptop is the door bar, if I can get this thing even. It's supposed to be right here, right? Well, for Kyle Larson, it got bented and destroyed, and it came in a little bit. I don't think it hit him. I don't think it didn't hurt him, but it did get into the cockpit, like right here, let's call it, which is very dangerous because think about if it was on this side right here. If that door bar comes in that far, it hits Larson. That is steel, 150 miles an hour hitting him. That is going to do some damage, severe injury, and possibly even worse, death. So NASCAR knew they had to make a change. Now, yes, this is a freak accident that happened, but the fact that it's a possibility means it could potentially happen again. And NASCAR said, okay, we need to make a change to the cars. No, we don't have to do anything drastic. We're not going to slow the cars down. We're not going to make them go 50 miles an hour at Talladega now, but safety improvements need to be made. And NASCAR has been really good at this, as I've said. When something happens, they get on top of it in terms of safety. When Kurt Busch got concussed, they immediately started researching, putting things into their computers about how can we make the car safer? How can we make the rear impact safer? And, they were working on it. But of course, when the Bowman concussion hit, it was like, okay, like we need this change now. We can't wait anymore. this change has to happen right now. And so they kind of picked up the pace in terms of what they were working on and tried to get something in before the end of the season to implement for 2023, maybe the end of 2022. I can't remember exactly when it was implemented. But with this impact, thankfully, once again, no one was hurt, but they made sure to make the structure of the car, the doors of the car, they put an extra steel plates in there to make the car not stiffer necessarily, but it can take more of an impact without giving as much in terms of the doors. I talked about earlier the rear of the car with the concussions needing to give more and the front of the car giving more in terms of the changes they made. But with this one, you can't have the doors giving more, because if the doors are giving more, they're getting crushed more, and that's bad because the drivers on the left side, they get hit in the door, they could get injured. If anything, this is like the one part of the car you want to be stiffer because you don't want the driver to get crushed by a potential door. So I applaud NASCAR for making these changes. These are some pretty big changes. And also I applaud NASCAR for taking the cost themselves. They are making this change and they're telling the teams, like, look, we're going to pay for you right now. We're going to cover this cost for you, just because, it's not their fault. It's not the team's fault that this issue happened. So NASCAR is going to take this cost on themselves. So I applaud NASCAR for doing that. I also applaud NASCAR for, as I said earlier, being transparent about it. They could have secretly made this change and said, oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. Media, we're going to give you a headline. We're going to announce something. While we're doing that, we're going to fix the car up and then we're going to announce changes, but it's going to be really quiet. No, NASCAR has been very open about their changes with the car. They're saying, all right, once the crash happened, we're taking that 5 car back to the Research and Development Center. We're going to investigate what happened. We're going to make sure it doesn't happen again, or if that crash does happen again, the severity of the damage does not happen. So they said this is not happening again in terms of damage. And they just now released the findings of the investigation. They announced what changes they made. They announced why they did these changes and how the process of the changes happened. So the what was adding the steel in the doors, making the front give a little bit more by removing some parts, making some openings in the front clip. And then also with just the overall changes, those were the specific changes. So that was the what they are doing. Why were they doing it? Because of the crash at Talladega between the 5 and the 41. How are they doing it? They explained how they did it. They said they had computers that would generate certain possibilities of what was happening, and they also had calculations of the exact speed of the crash, the exact angle of the crash, the exact impact of the crash. They had all of these calculations and how it all went about. So really good on NASCAR. Once again, really, it's positive news for NASCAR because, first of all, the incident that happened was scary, yes, but thankfully no one got hurt because NASCAR has been pretty darn safe for the last 22 years. Despite the injuries last year, yes, but NASCAR has been one of the most safe motorsports in the world, and they have really prided themselves on it. So that's one thing, is that no one actually got hurt in the crash, which is good, but it's still a scary incident when you look at the damage. And two, NASCAR took on the incident, the damage, head on and said, we're going to fix it. So very good for NASCAR, really good storyline in terms of them actually taking action and making sure that, yes, no one got hurt here, but the fact that it's a possibility, we want to get on top of it because we don't want to sit back and say, we don't want to spend money on that. And then when someone actually gets hurt or even worse, killed, everyone's going to be looking at NASCAR and like, why would you allow this to happen? So good on NASCAR, really good on NASCAR. I know we give NASCAR a lot of crap for whatever it may be, whether it's schedule changes, car changes in terms of like the racing and stuff, but this is something that I think everyone needs to applaud NASCAR on. So good job, NASCAR, making these changes for the purpose of safety. And a little bit of a long video. There was a lot going on in this kind of next-gen test session in terms of the crash test. But once again, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. As I said, there's that video down on the pinned comment. I'll probably put it in the description too, just in case you miss it. It can't be too hard to miss, but you never know. So go watch that video. It shows all the crash tests, shows all the different parts, the full explanation from the guy we just read the quote from, whose name I can't pronounce, and then Todd Gordon as well. Former crew chief at Team Penske, and then also now I think he's at MRN. feel free to go watch that as well. Thanks for watching again. Have a great rest of your day. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. And I'll see you in the next video, whenever that may be.